What's up?
What's down with it, love?
What's going on? Hey, you know your people off the back end?
Yeah, what about it?
You off the back end?
Yeah, that's my people.
One of your people in that town, come on that back. Well, okay. Okay.
I'm finna go see what that's about now. That nigga think he finna hit me up.
Shit.
Alright, bet.
In the quiet neighborhoods of Baton Rouge, Louisiana, violence can erupt in an instant, forever altering the lives of those caught in its wake. On September 16, 2020, a series of gunshots tore through the night air on Joyce Drive, ending the life of 40-year-old Brenda Mullens. But to understand the true weight of this tragedy, we must first know the woman whose story was cut short that night. Born December 10, 1979, Brenda wasn't just another statistic in a crime report. She was a force of nature, known throughout her community for her vibrant personality and authenticity. Those who knew her best described her as sassy and someone who kept it real. In a world where many wear masks, Brenda was refreshingly genuine, a quality that earned her deep respect among friends, family, and neighbors throughout Baton Rouge. When Brenda walked into a room, you knew she was there. Recalled a close friend who wished to remain anonymous. Not because she demanded attention, but because her energy was infectious. She had this way of making you feel like you mattered when she spoke to you. As a mother of 3 children, Brenda's life revolved around creating stability and love in her household. Former classmates from Prescott Middle School remembered her determination even in youth, a quality she carried into adulthood and motherhood. While public records don't detail her career path or educational achievements beyond middle school, her impact on the community spoke volumes about her character and priorities. Brenda's social media accounts painted the picture of a woman devoted to her family. Photos of birthday celebrations, school events, and quiet moments at home showcased a mother who treasured these ordinary instances of joy. Comments from friends praised her strength, compassion, and unwavering dedication to her children. What these cheerful online snapshots didn't reveal was the complicated relationship Brenda had with Davion Obi Bentley, a 24-year-old local rapper who performed under the name Juice Bentley. Their connection, which had deteriorated in the months before her death, would ultimately set the stage for tragedy. At 24, Bentley was 16 years Brenda's junior. While the full history of their relationship remains unclear, what is known is that by September 2020, Bentley was already wanted by authorities on multiple charges, including home invasion, illegal weapon possession, and being a felon in possession of a firearm. His lyrics, which often glorified violence and confrontation, weren't mere artistic expression, but reflections of a dangerous reality. On that fateful September night, the tension between past attachment and present danger came to a head. According to police reports and eyewitness accounts, Bentley arrived at Brenda's home seeking sanctuary from law enforcement. What might have seemed like a simple request to him represented an impossible choice for Brenda: harbor a wanted criminal in the home she shared with her children, or stand firm in her refusal. She chose the latter. This decision, to protect her home, her children, and her principles, would cost Brenda Mullens her life. As darkness fell over Joyce Drive, no one could have anticipated that by morning, Brenda's voice would be silenced forever, her children would be witnesses to horror, and a community would be left struggling to make sense of senseless violence. The story of what happened on Joyce Drive is more than a recounting of crime scene details or legal proceedings. It's about a woman who refused to compromise her values even when faced with deadly consequences. It's about the devastating collision between domestic violence and a justice system struggling to protect vulnerable individuals before tragedy strikes. Most importantly, it's about remembering Brenda Mullens for how she lived, not just how she died. As we dive deeper into this harrowing case, we'll examine the events leading up to that night, follow the investigation that tracked a killer across state lines, and witness a community's demand for justice. But first, we must acknowledge the full humanity of the woman whose story we tell. Before we continue, if you find this story important, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment sharing your thoughts, and subscribe to our channel for more in-depth true crime documentaries that honor victims while seeking to understand the complex factors behind these tragic events. At 24 years old, Davion "Dobie" Bentley was making a name for himself in Baton Rouge's underground rap scene. Known to fans as Juice Bentley, he cultivated an image steeped in street credibility and confrontation. His music videos, shared across social media platforms, showcase the trappings of an aspiring artist: flashy clothes, money displays, and an ever-present tough persona that resonated with young fans drawn to his raw lyrics. But the man behind the stage name harbored violent tendencies that extended far beyond artistic expression. By September 2020, Bentley wasn't just chasing musical fame. He was running from the law. Court records revealed he was already wanted on serious charges including home invasion, illegal use of a weapon, and being a felon in possession of a firearm, a fact that would become devastatingly relevant in the case of Brenda Mullens. Local music producers who had worked with Bentley noted his talent, but also his unpredictability. He could lay down amazing tracks one minute, then fly into a rage the next, said one studio owner who requested anonymity due to safety concerns. There was always tension when he was in the room. This volatility wasn't merely a personality quirk. It was an indicator of escalating criminal behavior that law enforcement had documented through multiple encounters. Each incident appeared more serious than the last, forming a pattern that criminologists recognize as a dangerous progression toward potentially deadly violence. The contrast between Bentley's public image and private actions was stark. While cultivating followers online with music that glorified street life, he was simultaneously amassing a criminal record that suggested he was living out the very scenarios described in his lyrics. Songs that boasted about evading police, confronting enemies, and resolving conflicts through violence weren't fictional stories but reflections of his actual behavior. One track, released just months before Brenda's murder, contained lyrics describing shooting through a door to reach a target, an eerily precise foreshadowing of how he would ultimately take Brenda's life. While many artists create personas separate from their personal lives, for Bentley, the line between performance and reality had blurred to near invisibility. His videos often featured weapons prominently displayed, despite his status as a felon legally prohibited from possessing firearms. This flagrant disregard for legal restrictions demonstrated a confidence that he could operate outside the boundaries of law without consequences, an attitude that would eventually lead to fatal outcomes. What remains less clear from public records is how Bentley first connected with Brenda Mullens, a woman 16 years his senior with children and deep community ties. Their relationship appeared to be marked by intermittent conflict. According to neighbors, Bentley had been seen at Brenda's residence on Joyce Drive multiple times in the months preceding her death, with some visits ending in loud arguments that disturbed the otherwise peaceful street. A family member later revealed that Brenda had considered seeking a protective order against Bentley, but hadn't completed the process. This hesitation, tragically common in domestic violence situations, highlights the complicated emotional dynamics that often keep victims connected to potential abusers despite recognizing danger signs. By September 2020, their relationship had deteriorated significantly. Police records indicate that Bentley's escalating legal troubles had placed additional strain on their already complex dynamic. As warrants mounted and law enforcement pressure increased, Bentley's behavior reportedly became more erratic and demanding. What made this situation particularly volatile was Bentley's status as a wanted man, increasingly desperate to avoid capture. His growing criminal record meant any new arrest would likely result in significant prison time. This desperation created a pressure cooker situation where Bentley's self-preservation instinct overrode any concern for others' safety, including Brenda's. The night of September 16 didn't represent a sudden departure from character for Davion Bentley. Rather, it marked the culmination of a trajectory set in motion through numerous previous encounters with both the criminal justice system and his personal relationships. When he arrived at Brenda's home that night, he brought with him not only a firearm, but a history of escalating violence that had been documented but not effectively interrupted. For those who knew both Brenda and Bentley, the tragedy represents a collision of two vastly different life paths. A community-oriented mother known for her authenticity and care for others, and a young man whose artistic aspirations had become inseparable from his violent tendencies. As the events of that September night would prove, when these worlds collided, the consequences would be irreversible and fatal. September 16, 2020 began as an ordinary Wednesday in Baton Rouge. The summer heat was finally giving way to slightly cooler evening temperatures, and on the 2900 block of Joyce Drive, 40-year-old Brenda Mullens was home with her children. Their routine evening activities, homework, dinner preparation, television, created a scene of domestic normality that would be shattered before the night ended. According to police reports and witness statements, at approximately 10 p.m., Davion Bentley arrived unexpectedly at Brenda's residence. His appearance wasn't a casual visit. With multiple outstanding warrants for his arrest, Bentley was actively evading law enforcement. Sources close to the investigation revealed that Bentley came with a specific demand. He wanted to use Brenda's home as a hideout from authorities. The conversation quickly escalated into an argument that could be heard by neighbors on either side of the modest home. Brenda, with her children present, refused to let Bentley stay. According to statements later provided to investigators, she was adamant that she wouldn't jeopardize her family's safety by harboring a wanted felon. She told him she had kids to think about, one neighbor reported hearing through open windows. She kept saying he needed to leave. This refusal, Brenda's stand to protect her home and family, would prove fatal. As the verbal confrontation intensified, Brenda reportedly told Bentley that he needed to turn himself in rather than continue running. This suggestion apparently triggered a violent reaction from a man who had no intention of surrendering to authorities. At approximately 10:28 p.m., multiple gunshots rang out. Ballistic evidence later collected from the scene confirmed what witnesses described. Bentley, after being denied entry and assistance, fired multiple shots through the front door of the residence. The bullets tore through the door's thin material, striking Brenda multiple times. Inside the home, Brenda's children witnessed the immediate aftermath of the shooting, a traumatic scene that they would later recount to investigators with remarkable consistency and clarity despite their young ages. Their testimonies would prove crucial in establishing the sequence of events and identifying Bentley as the shooter. One of the children immediately called 911, while another attempted to provide aid to their wounded mother. The dispatch recording, later entered into evidence, captured the panic and chaos of those first moments. A child's voice desperately pleading for help as background sounds revealed the gravity of the situation. First responders from the Baton Rouge Police Department arrived minutes after receiving multiple emergency calls reporting gunshots. Officers found Brenda suffering from multiple gunshot wounds. Despite their quick arrival, the severity of her injuries was immediately apparent. Emergency medical services worked quickly to stabilize her for transport. Brenda was rushed to a nearby hospital where medical staff fought to save her life. Despite their efforts, the injuries proved too severe. Brenda Ann Mullens was pronounced dead shortly after arrival, another victim of domestic violence in a city that has struggled with elevated rates of such crimes. Back at Joyce Drive, police officers established a perimeter around the home. The Baton Rouge Police Department's Homicide Division was immediately notified, and detectives began arriving within the hour. Crime scene technicians methodically documented the scene, collecting shell casings, taking photographs, and creating detailed sketches of the area. Meanwhile, other officers interviewed neighbors who had heard the argument and gunshots. Several reported seeing a man matching Bentley's description, leaving the scene in a hurry immediately after the shots were fired. This information, combined with the children's identifications, quickly established Bentley as the primary suspect. Within hours of the shooting, the Baton Rouge Police Department issued a warrant for Bentley's arrest on charges that would eventually include first-degree murder, attempted first-degree murder, illegal use of a weapon, and being a felon in possession of a firearm. What they didn't know at that moment was that Bentley had already fled, beginning what would become a month-long interstate manhunt. As dawn broke over Joyce Drive on September 17th, the yellow police tape surrounding Brenda's home stood in stark contrast to the otherwise ordinary street. Neighbors gathered in small groups, sharing information and expressing shock that such violence had erupted in their community. Some brought flowers to place near the property line, the first of many memorials that would honor Brenda in the coming days. For the detectives assigned to the case, the night's events presented a clear but disturbing narrative. A mother had lost her life for refusing to harbor a criminal. A man who chose violence when denied assistance in evading justice. The evidence was substantial, the witnesses credible, but the suspect was nowhere to be found. If you're finding this case as compelling as we do, please take a moment to like this video and share it with others. Your support helps us continue telling these important stories. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for notifications about new uploads. And if this story has caught your attention, you'll want to check out our specially curated True Crime Stories playlist. The link is in the description box below. You'll find more gripping cases of justice pursued across state lines and the brave stands victims have taken against their abusers. After this video, head over to that playlist for more stories that will leave you shocked at the lengths some criminals will go to avoid facing consequences. As Brenda Mullens' family began the painful process of grieving, the Baton Rouge Police Department launched a comprehensive investigation into her murder. The initial crime scene examination yielded crucial physical evidence that would prove vital in the case against Davion Bentley. Forensic technicians recovered multiple shell casings from outside the residence on Joyce Drive, confirming that the shooter had fired through the front door rather than inside the home. This physical evidence aligned perfectly with witness statements describing Bentley firing from outside after being denied entry. The trajectory of the bullets, documented through detailed measurements and photographs, created a clear picture of the shooter's position at the time of the attack. Investigators also collected gunshot residue samples from the door frame and surrounding areas. Ballistics experts were able to determine the caliber and potential type of weapon used, adding another crucial element to the case file. Though the murder weapon itself wasn't recovered at the scene, these ballistic fingerprints would later be essential for comparison should the gun ever be found. The documentation of evidence extended beyond the immediate area of the shooting. Officers canvassed the neighborhood, collecting statements from residents who had heard the argument preceding the gunshots. Several neighbors confirmed hearing a heated exchange before the fatal shots, with multiple witnesses identifying Bentley by name or description as the man seen leaving the area immediately after the shooting. Perhaps the most compelling evidence came from surveillance footage obtained from nearby properties. Though not every angle of the street was captured, cameras from adjacent homes showed a figure matching Bentley's description approaching Brenda's residence and later leaving in haste around the time the 911 calls were placed. This visual evidence, combined with the consistent eyewitness accounts from Brenda's children, created a solid foundation for the investigation. As detectives built their case, it quickly became apparent that Bentley had fled not just the immediate area, but Louisiana entirely. Law enforcement resources expanded beyond Baton Rouge, with alerts sent to neighboring states and the U.S. Marshals Service becoming involved in tracking the fugitive. Intelligence gathered from associates and monitoring of social media provided hints that Bentley was moving westward. Investigators learned he had contacts in several states, making his potential hiding locations numerous. His history as a performer gave him connections in various cities, and authorities believed he was leveraging these relationships to stay ahead of law enforcement. The search intensified as weeks passed, with Bentley's case featured on local news stations across multiple states. Digital surveillance included monitoring of financial transactions and communication patterns of known associates. Each potential sighting generated immediate response from local authorities, though several proved to be false leads. By early October, investigators had narrowed their focus to the Denver, Colorado area. Information from confidential informants suggested Bentley had found temporary sanctuary with distant connections who may not have been fully aware of the severity of his charges. The U.S. Marshals Service, with its specialized resources for fugitive apprehension, took the lead in this phase of the operation. On October 12, 2020, nearly a month after Brenda's murder, federal marshals located Bentley at a residence in Denver. Learning from previous missed opportunities, authorities planned a careful approach that left no avenue for escape. In a pre-dawn operation, marshals surrounded the location and executed the arrest without incident or injury. Bentley, who had evaded capture for 26 days, was taken into custody without the violent resistance he had shown on the night of September 16th. According to agents present during the arrest, he appeared resigned to his fate when confronted by the overwhelming law enforcement presence. Within days, extradition proceedings began to return Bentley to Louisiana, where he would face justice for the murder of Brenda Mullens. The Interstate Manhunt had succeeded through methodical investigation, coordination between multiple agencies, and the relentless pursuit of evidence. For Brenda's family, the arrest represented the first step toward accountability, though the legal process ahead would prove lengthy and emotionally challenging. As Bentley made the journey back to Baton Rouge in custody, investigators continued building their case, ensuring that when he finally stood before a judge, the evidence would speak clearly to his guilt. After his capture in Denver, Davion Bentley was extradited back to Louisiana to face the legal consequences of his actions. The return journey to Baton Rouge marked the end of his month on the run, but the beginning of a lengthy legal process that would ultimately determine his fate. Upon arrival in East Baton Rouge Parish, prosecutors formally charged Bentley with a series of serious offenses. The most severe was first-degree murder for the death of Brenda Mullens. Additional charges included attempted first-degree murder, illegal use of a weapon, and being a felon in possession of a firearm. The multiple charges reflected both the gravity of Bentley's actions on September 16th and his prior criminal history that prohibited him from legally possessing firearms. During the pretrial phase, Bentley's defense team attempted to suppress various pieces of evidence collected during the investigation. Court records show these efforts were largely unsuccessful, with judges ruling that the evidence had been properly obtained and documented by law enforcement. The prosecution's case remained intact despite these legal challenges. The trial itself began in April 2023, approximately 2.5 years after Brenda's murder. This delay, while frustrating for the victim's family, allowed both prosecution and defense to thoroughly prepare their cases. Over 5 days, the court heard testimony from multiple witnesses who helped reconstruct the events of that fatal night on Joyce Drive. Among the most compelling witnesses were Brenda's children, who provided first-hand accounts of the domestic dispute that preceded the shooting. Their testimonies established that Bentley had attempted to use their home as a hideout from police and that Brenda had refused, a decision that ultimately cost her life. The consistency of their accounts, despite the trauma they had experienced, provided powerful evidence against Bentley. Forensic experts presented the physical evidence collected from the scene, including ballistic analysis of the shell casings and detailed crime scene documentation. This technical testimony corroborated the eyewitness accounts, creating a comprehensive picture of Bentley firing multiple shots through the front door after being denied entry. Prosecutors also presented evidence of Bentley's flight from Louisiana as an indication of consciousness of guilt. His month-long evasion of authorities across state lines demonstrated his awareness of the seriousness of his actions and his determination to avoid accountability. On April 28, 2023, after deliberation, the jury returned with their verdict: guilty of second-degree murder. While not the first-degree murder charge initially sought by prosecutors, the conviction nonetheless ensured that Bentley would face severe consequences for taking Brenda's life. The sentencing phase followed several months later. On August 9, 2023, Bentley appeared before the court to learn his fate. The judge, citing the domestic violence context of the murder and Bentley's prior criminal history, sentenced him to life in prison without the possibility of parole, the maximum penalty available for second-degree murder under Louisiana law. As the sentence was pronounced, members of Brenda's family present in the courtroom displayed mixed emotions. Relief that justice had been served, but also the renewed grief that comes with such pivotal moments in the aftermath of losing a loved one. For them, no punishment could truly compensate for the loss of Brenda, but the sentence ensured that Bentley would never again be in a position to harm others. Community members who had supported the family throughout the legal process expressed satisfaction with the outcome. Local advocates for domestic violence prevention pointed to the case as an example of the justice system working to protect victims, even when that protection came too late for Brenda herself. In statements to local media following the sentencing, Brenda's family emphasized that while the legal case had concluded, their work to honor her memory was just beginning. They spoke of her warmth, her dedication to her children, and her courage in standing firm against Bentley's demands on that final night, highlighting the aspects of her character that defined her life, rather than the violent manner of her death. For the Baton Rouge community, the conviction and sentencing represented a measure of closure in a case that had shocked residents and drawn attention to the ongoing issue of domestic violence in the region. Though Brenda could not be brought back, the legal system had ensured accountability for the man who took her life. In the years following Brenda Mullens' death, her story has become more than a tragic headline in Baton Rouge. It has evolved into a powerful catalyst for change in how the community addresses domestic violence. The impact of her case extends far beyond the courtroom where her killer was sentenced. The East Baton Rouge District Attorney's Office specifically mentioned Brenda's case in their 2020 Domestic Violence Annual Report, using it to highlight critical gaps in the system that allows repeat offenders to continue patterns of abuse. This official recognition of her story has helped shape policy discussions around strengthening protective orders and improving law enforcement response protocols in domestic violence situations. Local memorials for Brenda took various forms in the community that knew and loved her. Candlelight vigils held in the months following her death brought together not just family and friends, but also strangers moved by her story. Social media became a platform for celebrating her life, with dedicated memorial pages sharing photos and memories that painted a fuller picture of who she was: a loving mother, a steadfast friend, and a woman of principle. Brenda was so much more than what happened to her. A family spokesperson told local media during one memorial event, "She was joy and strength and love. That's what we want people to remember about her." These public remembrances served a dual purpose, honoring Brenda while also raising awareness about domestic violence. Advocacy organizations throughout Baton Rouge have incorporated her story into their educational materials, using it to illustrate how quickly domestic situations can escalate to deadly violence and the importance of community support systems for those at risk. Perhaps the most meaningful aspect of Brenda's legacy comes through the voices of her children and other family members. In public statements, they have consistently emphasized her compassionate nature and the values she instilled in those around her. They have channeled their grief into advocacy, participating in community forums on domestic violence prevention and supporting initiatives aimed at protecting vulnerable individuals. While no formal foundation bears Brenda's name, her influence is evident in the increased attention given to domestic violence issues in Baton Rouge. Local support services report higher levels of community engagement since her case gained prominence, with more people volunteering, donating, and actively participating in prevention efforts. The lessons drawn from Brenda's case are clear and urgent. Domestic violence requires early intervention, robust support systems, and a coordinated community response. Her story demonstrates the critical importance of recognizing potential warning signs and providing safe pathways for those in volatile relationships. Brenda Ann Mullens, mother, friend, community member, refused to compromise her principles, even when faced with deadly threats. This final act of courage, though it cost her life, revealed her true character and has inspired others to take stands against violence in their own communities. As we conclude this documentary, I ask you to help keep Brenda's story alive by liking and sharing this video with others who need to hear it. Your subscription to our channel supports our mission to shine light on important stories like Brenda's. Before you go, take a moment to check out our True Crime Stories playlist. The link is in the description. There, you'll find the powerful story of a mother who escaped her abuser and helped authorities capture him after years on the run. A story of survival that shows another possible outcome in the fight against domestic violence. Your watch time makes a difference in helping these important stories reach those who need them most.